Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Very warm good morning to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I welcome you all to today's Hindu Newspaper Analysis session. As you know, every single day at 10 a.m. we start discussing all the most important news stories from the Hindu newspaper, both from the prelims and from the mains examination point of view. Thank you so much for joining in right on time. In case you have missed any of our earlier videos, please don't forget you can watch all of them on our playlist. Also reminding you, as soon as this session comes to an end, you have to move over to our Telegram channel where you can attend the quiz based on the topics that we are discussing. Let's see what are the topics that will be discussed today. These are the topics that we have taken up. We'll be starting our discussion with Rajasthan government's move to give certain welfare schemes to their gig workers. Then the second article will be on why spurious liquor actually kills. You might have seen a lot of different types of news stories where hooch or illegal liquor kills a lot of people. Recently, this tragedy took place in Tamil Nadu as well. So we'll be discussing why exactly is that, what is the reason that this hooch or illegal liquor or spurious liquor actually kills people. The third topic will be about trade. This is a topic where India's falling trade numbers have been discussed. So in the past few months, India's overall trade, that is import and export, have not really been living up to its expectation. We'll be discussing what exactly is that all about. Then from the prelims point of view, there are just a couple of news stories. First, the Collegium has recommended new judges in the Supreme Court. So we'll be discussing what that is, who are the judges who have been recommended, what is the process all about, and then India is one step closer to inventing its own indigenous dengue vaccine. These are the topics that we have for today's discussion. Without waiting any further, let's begin with the first one. So the first topic that we have is Rajasthan government's new initiative to safeguard the gig workers. Now, Rajasthan government has been in the news for multiple reasons. We have already discussed how Rajasthan government's right to health bill has been in the news. Rajasthan government trying to provide free healthcare to everyone. Similarly, Rajasthan government has also introduced one very interesting bill that is about the gig workers. So in simple terms, what the Rajasthan government is doing, they have initiated the formation of something called platform-based gig worker social and security welfare fund. Platform-based gig workers social security and welfare fund. Now, what exactly is this all about? What is this initiative? I'm sure all of you know by now who are gig workers. So gig workers are those who are not considered as permanent full-time employees. For example, Zomato, Swiggy, their delivery boys, Uber, Ola, cab drivers, all of these would be considered as gig workers. So gig workers means you will get paid for the job that you do. For example, Swiggy, Zomato, delivery boys get paid per order. So the number of orders that they deliver, multiply that with a certain number, you will get that payment. The day that you don't work, the day that you are absent for whatever reason, you are ill or whatever you want to take off, you will not get any salary for that day. There are also other benefits that are given to permanent people, permanent laborers who are not given or which are not given to the gig workers. Similarly is the case with Ola, Uber drivers. Those are what gig workers are all about. Now the reality is, in the past few years, some companies such as Zomato, Swiggy have started giving them certain rights. For example, these companies like Zomato, Swiggy have now started offering insurance to their delivery boys or delivery executives. They have accidental insurance, they have these kind of insurances. However, even then, there is an issue. The issue is, for example, let's say there are certain delivery boys in Ola or Uber or Swiggy, whatever. Let's say their salary is reduced. All of a sudden, let's assume the company decides that now we will only be paying you 10 rupees per order. Earlier, we were paying you 30 rupees per order. Now, if these delivery boys, delivery executives now have to leave their job, the problem is that they don't have any security to fall back on. They don't have a fund that will take care of them. Most of them have not contributed to PF, most of them have not contributed to savings. So how do they take care of themselves in case they are left out of their job? For this specifically, Rajasthan government has initiated a platform which is for gig workers social security and welfare fund. So this will be a kind of a fund initiated by the Rajasthan government. The concept is simple. They want to provide safety and security to their gig workers. So gig workers working in Rajasthan, if they have, let's say, sudden loss of job, sudden loss of employment, they have faced certain accidents, if they can't earn for some time, then this fund will help them out. Now, Rajasthan is the first state in India to have such a law. However, please understand, this is not the first law in India about gig workers. When the government of India codified our labor laws, government of India at the center government level also gave certain freedoms or certain assurances to gig workers in the Code on Social Security. As you know, about 3 years back, the government of India codified all the labor laws into different labor codes. The Code on Social Security has certain provisions about gig workers. So gig workers have not been given such freedom at any state level apart from Rajasthan, but at least at the center government level, there is an initiative by the center government to take care of the gig workers. Now, the problem here is the center government says that we are already taking care of gig workers by including them in the Code of Social Security. But the problem is when the center government includes gig workers in the Code of Social Security, the center government alone decides what will be the benefits given to the gig workers. In this case also, most of the benefits that the gig workers require are actually kept out of it. Most of the benefits will be decided by the center government only. The center government, for example, has told the state governments, you can give employment injury benefit. So someone gets injured in the employment, then they will get certain benefit. Housing, education scheme for children, etc. These are the only things that will be given as per the central government. No other benefit will be given to gig workers. This is a problem. Now, other kind of important inclusions such as disability cover, old age protection, etc., they have not been supported by the center government. That is why, as per the author, there is a requirement that we should have every single state in India make this kind of a law as Rajasthan has done to take care of their gig workers. Because again, gig workers are right now at the bedrock of India's economy. A lot of people who otherwise would have been unemployed right now have some employment because they are working as gig workers. Just imagine that. Delivery executives who are working for Swiggy, Zomato, etc., they don't require a lot of high skills, they don't require a lot of high educational qualifications. They just require a two-wheeler, they just have a license. So a lot of people who otherwise would have been unemployed are actually getting employment through this. And it's not just this. A lot of people even are taking this up as a part-time job. There are many people who have a full-time job and then for 2-3 hours they do this. That is again an example of how our economy has been supported so much with the increase in gig economy. And thus it is fair that the governments must realize this and the governments must give them more protection and not just the basic protection. The author says that we already have an example that we can follow. We have something called the Construction Workers Board. Now, what is a Construction Workers Board? So, Construction Workers Board again is a board that has been formed for the welfare of workers in the construction sector. So, this board gets funds from real estate companies. So, real estate companies, whenever they are making any big projects, 1 to 2% of that is contributed in the Construction Worker Board, and that money is then spent for the welfare of the construction workers. A similar kind of a thing we can have with the Gig Workers Board. In simple terms, in the Gig Worker Board also, we may have companies that employ gig workers like Swiggy, Zomato, we may ask them to contribute here. That can be a way forward. Now, there are some issues because of which gig workers have not been given their rights. As I said earlier, the Code on Social Security by the Government of India does try and cover the gig workers, but the problem is they don't offer a lot of rights. They only offer very basic rights such as accidental cover, etc. They don't talk about the benefits for old age, pension, etc. So that has still been a challenge. In short, Rajasthan government is taking the first step, But Rajasthan government also has to ensure that there is enough funds in that welfare board, and then the other states also apart from Rajasthan must learn how to take care of the gig workers, because this gig economy is the answer to India's increasing unemployment. There are a few facts I wanted to share with you. Niti Aayog, June 2022, just about a year back, Niti Aayog released a report. The report was called India's Booming Gig and Platform Economy Report. In this report, the Niti Aayog had said 47% of the gig work is medium skilled job, 22% is high skilled, and 31% is low skilled jobs. And the number of people who are working in the gig economy are increasing every single month. Niti Aayog also said that government should give tax breaks, startup grants, etc. for those businesses that employ 1/3 women and persons with disabilities in the gig economy. You would have seen an increasing number of women, for example, working in Swiggy, Zomato, even Ola, Uber, cab drivers. So this also presents an opportunity for the women to go ahead and participate in the economy with more work opportunities, as was not the case earlier. This is what the Niti Aayog has suggested. The code on social security that we are talking about was codified a few years back. It included provisions about gig workers. The code of social security said there are different types of workers in the industry. There are unorganized workers, there are gig workers, and there are platform workers. Gig workers again are the ones that work in the unorganized sector, or even if they're in the organized sector, they are not recognized as proper permanent workers, and that is why they do not get a lot of benefits. The government of India, under the code of social security, wanted to give them a lot more benefits. The government had asked for CSR funding also to help the gig workers and their social welfare. The government has asked the aggregators such as Swiggy, Zomato, etc. to set 1 to 2% of their annual turnover for social security fund of these gig workers. These are certain suggestions given by the government of India to those companies who employ gig workers, so that the gig workers can also be taken care of. But again, we have a long way to go. These are some of the interesting and important data points about gig workers. There are about 90 million jobs that could be added to the gig economy in future. They are individuals who are employed and they work on their own terms, they work on their own timing, they don't really have any specific time where they have to go and work. Gig workers usually work in the field of services, pharma, financial, for manufacturing. All these kind of different organization sectors have gig workers working in them. This was our first article. Before I move on to the second one, let me quickly take up a few questions. Harshini is saying, what is the full form of CSR? CSR is corporate social responsibility, under which the corporates are expected to contribute a part of their profits to some social sector initiatives. That is corporate social responsibility. Rashida is saying, why they do not give them permanent work? See, think of it from the point of view of the company. Let's say if you are running a company and then you want to employ some people, why would you give them permanent employment? Because when you give them permanent employment, your cost increases. You have to give them paid leaves, you have to give them other types of benefits, insurance, etc. So from a company's point of view, they also want that we do not have to give all these different types of rights to our employers or to our employees. So companies also don't want to have a lot of permanent employees. Ashwini is saying the rights that you're talking about are not given to other people in the private sector also. Again, I'm not saying that all the private sector, all the permanent employees are very happy. There are problems in everywhere. But again, on the other hand, at least some people or most people in the formal sector do get certain rights. But in the informal sector, no one or none of them get any rights. So there is always scope for improvement in both. But I won't say that formal sector, informal sector are the same in India right now. Yes, Ram, all unorganized workers can be called as gig workers. Dharani is saying gig workers come under union or state list. No. Union or state list is not for gig workers. Union or state list is for those subjects on which the laws can be made by central government or the state government. So gig workers is not really a subject that you will have here. Then, let me see what else. Is this a concurrent list matter? No, no. Please do not confuse this with concurrent list matter, etc. Labor is in itself a state list subject. So when the center government makes laws, for example, they made the code on social security, they can't make a permanent law. They will have to ask the states to make a law for themselves. Center government can make a model law and then they can ask the state governments to then implement those laws or make their own kind of laws. Let's go ahead then. The next article that we have here is again an unfortunate news that keeps on coming every few months. That is an unfortunate incident where many people have been killed due to spurious liquor. Means illegal liquor or bad liquor or huge tragedy. There are many names given to it. This news is coming in from Tamil Nadu where many people have consumed this liquor and they have died. Now you would have seen it is not really something which is very uncommon. Unfortunately, every few months we have this kind of a news story. Let's say in Bihar, there are some people who die after having hooch or desi liquor. Then you see some in Jharkhand, you see some in Chhattisgarh, you see some in Tamil Nadu. So this is something that is very common yet unfortunate. Now, what exactly do we mean by this? What happens in this case? Why is this liquor bad? This is what we'll be discussing. Now, many people, and those, especially those who are who consume liquor, they have this argument that small bit of liquor, and this is how they say small. All of them say a small liquor is good for health, right? Many people who actually have liquor, they have this argument. Many people who want to have wine, you want to have beer, whatever you want to have, their argument is, but small is good, right? Small is good for health, but that is not true. The WHO has said this once and for all that this is not true. Small, little bit, whatever you want, it is bad. WHO has said that any level of consumption of alcohol is bad for your health. Doesn't matter how small. Many people say, oh, 30 ml will not really harm you. No, everything will harm you. Even in small quantity, it will harm you. So there is no level of liquor that is good for you. It is not good for you. So if you or some of your friends consume it by this reason, at least tell them WHO at least does not agree with you. Now, if you actually see what exactly is the issue all about, liquor has some kind of alcohol. What is the alcohol in liquor? So liquor basically has ethanol. Now, different types of liquor have different percentage of ethanol. For example, beer have a smaller percentage of ethanol. Then you go to drinks such as whiskey, rum, they have a higher level of ethanol. So it really depends upon what level of ethanol there is, and that is how you usually segregate what are the different types of drinks. Yes, beer also harms. So beer also harms. So every liquor will harm you, full stop. Okay? Please don't ask me one by one for each and every liquor. Every liquor will harm you, full stop. And those who are saying it is good for cold, I would suggest if you have cold, have cough syrup. That is cheaper also, that is more effective also, that is a cheaper form of alcohol as well. So rather than going ahead and having alcohol or liquor, let's have cough syrup. Okay, let's go ahead then. So what exactly is the kind of alcohol that we have in liquor? That is ethanol. Now, ethanol is a kind of a psychoactive drug. It has an impact on your body. It has an intoxicating impact on your body. When ethanol is consumed in your body, it changes into different things. For example, it is metabolized in your liver and then in the stomach by alcohol dehydrogenase called ADH. They transform the acetaldehyde into acetate, and then acetate can give you certain hangover. This is the science of liquor. So the next time you're sitting with your friends and you're discussing science when you're having liquor, this is what you have to tell. That, bro, I know what happened when you consume liquor. So you have ethanol, then it gets converted by an enzyme. That enzyme is called alcohol dehydrogenase. Then it turns into acetate, and then acetate is the one in the end that actually has an intoxicating impact. Now, if liquor has ethanol and there is no problem with that, why is it that people die? Why is it that people die when they drink illegal liquor or when they drink hooch. What exactly happens? The problem is in spurious liquors, the alcohol that they have is not ethanol, that is methanol. Please remember, there's a difference between ethanol and methanol. So in the spurious liquors, in the illegal liquors, the kind of alcohol they use is methanol. It's much cheaper. On the other hand, ethanol is used in legal liquors. FSSAI, that sets the standards for food and beverages in India, FSSAI has stipulated maximum permissible methanol in different liquors. Methanol, even in very, very small quantities, can be extremely dangerous for you. That is why methanol actually is the basic reason behind all these tragedies. For example, as per FSSAI, the maximum methanol that you can have, for example, 50 grams per 100 liters in country liquor is allowed, 300 grams per 100 liters in pot distilled spirits is allowed, but methanol is allowed in very, very, very small quantity, because if you actually have it more than that, it will have a very disastrous impact on your body. For example, for an adult, more than 0.1 ml of pure methanol per kg of your body weight can also lead to fatal consequences. Per kilogram of your body, let's say if you are 60 kg, per kilogram of your body, even 0.1 ml of methanol is very high. If you go beyond that, it can actually have a very, very negative impact on your body, and that is why we see a lot of people passing away. Now, usually what happens when you consume methanol, it is metabolized in the liver, it forms formaldehyde, which can converted into formic acid, and this then over time will actually lead to interfering with your metabolism in your body. Your blood's pH drops below the normal value of 7.35, your blood becomes acidic, and that is why many of the people's body is not able to withstand that. This is how methanol has an impact. So again, remember, legal liquor, the kind of alcohol they have is ethanol, that is allowed. Illegal or hooch liquor have the alcohol, that is methanol. Now, how do we treat this? I hope none of you ever had to go through this, but if someone is going through this, how do we treat this? First, the one way of treating this, if someone has taken up or ingested methanol, the first way to take this is that you have to give ethanol to that person, so that in your body the concentration of methanol becomes much lower. So first way is to have ethanol administered, and the second way, there is a medicine called fomepizole. This is considered as the antidote to methanol. This is why this particular medicine is on the WHO's essential watch list medicine. Do you know what is essential watch list of WHO? So WHO has an essential watch list. This is a list of medicines that WHO gives to every country as a suggestion that you should keep a stock of this medicine. This is necessary for your people. Again, WHO essential watch list is a list shared by WHO to the countries around the world as a suggestion that please keep enough stock of these medicines. These are the medicines that are usually required by people in large numbers, so you should keep it. So this medicine is in the WHO essential watch list as well. Now coming to one more part of this debate. As you know, many states in India have banned alcohol completely, or many states in India have partially basically restricted the access to alcohol. For example, Gujarat, as you know, is a dry state. We also have Bihar as a dry state. Nagaland also. Then there are some states which have partially banned it, like for example in Kerala, it's partially banned. You can get it at 5-star hotel, but most of the places alcohol is banned. Now the point is, if alcohol is so bad, why doesn't the government just ban it? If alcohol is so bad, alcohol is actually leading to all these kind of problems, why doesn't the government just ban it? Now there are many points to this argument. Number one, see, when you ban something, you are just forcing the people to buy it in an illegal manner. For example, take the example of Bihar. Now Bihar is a dry state, they have banned it, But most of these news stories that huge tragedy has happened, people have died, most of them are from Bihar only. So when you ban something all of a sudden, it's not that you are ending it. You are just now creating a black market for it. Now that you have banned it, it will now be black marketed, sold at a higher cost, or people will try and make their own alcohol. That can be disastrous, number one. And secondly, as most of you are saying, this is a big revenue generator for the government. Do you remember when COVID-19 lockdown was lifted? Do you remember the long queues that we had on the liquor stores? That was after the governments doubled the taxes on liquor. That was after the governments, every state government doubled the taxes, tripled the tax on liquor, and still there was such a long queue on liquor stores. Because apparently that was the only vaccine people thought will work. So again, for government, it's a big source of revenue. And secondly, if you don't have it legal, if you make it illegal, you are not really restricting the access, you are just creating a black market for it. And by creating a black market, the problem is people will still consume it, but government will not get any money from it. So rather than that, it's better that government can regulate it. For anything, regulation is always better than prohibition, because prohibition will create a black market and it will be a dent on the government revenue. Regulation, government can control it, government can also earn from that. And that is why liquor has never really been something that liquor ban has not really worked. Okay, I'll tell you a very interesting incident, and apart from an incident, I will give you your homework as well today. Listen to this very carefully. It's a very interesting story that you should know. So what happened was, and this goes back to the time of India's Constituent Assembly. Listen to this very carefully. In the Constituent Assembly of India, when they were discussing what kind of a law that we should make, some of the people, some of the members of the Constituent Assembly demanded that we should ban liquor. Okay, some of them demanded that we should ban liquor. Now what happened was, and they took the name of Mahatma Gandhi. Let's see, Mahatma Gandhi is against liquor, so we should ban it. Now who can say anything against Mahatma Gandhi? Like, even if you want liquor, you will not say, no, I will not agree with what Mahatma Gandhi said. So by taking the name of Mahatma Gandhi, everyone said that yes, the liquor should be banned. Now, when this debate was going on, there was one person in the Constituent Assembly. Now listen to this very carefully. When this debate was going on, there was one person in the Constituent Assembly. Let's call the person Mr. X. Okay. So what he did was, he said that no, we will not agree to this. Why? He said that I come from the tribal region, I am a tribal, and in the tribal community, having alcohol is a part of our culture. So we can't ban it, number one. Secondly, what your homework is, you have to tell the name of this person in the comment section. I'll give you a big hint. This person was actually in Indian hockey team that won the gold medal in Olympics. This person, Arey Baba, not Ambedkar. How will Ambedkar play hockey? Or was Ambedkar tribal? No. So this person was a part of Indian hockey team that won the gold medal in Olympics. Then he came back, he became a part of the Constituent Assembly. In the Constituent Assembly, he was the one because of whom liquor was not banned in India. So every one of you who enjoys liquor, please thank Mr. X. Find out the name of Mr. X. It's a very interesting story. Think about it. You can search. It's a very interesting story. Tell me in the comment section after the class ends. It is not Major Dhyan Chand. Major Dhyan Chand was not a part of Constituent Assembly. Don't write the name of only hockey player that you know from history. Okay, let's go ahead. So that's your homework. Search on it. We'll discuss it later. Let's come back. So as you can see, India, in our directive principles at least, in our directive principles of the state policy, we have given this responsibility to the governments to try and ban alcohol. As you know, Article 47 of the directive principle says, the state shall endeavor to bring prohibition on the consumption for alcohol. But again, as you know, directive principles of the state policy are not binding on the government. These are something that are just suggestions for the government. The government may or may not accept it. Some state governments have accepted it, but most of them have not accepted it. As per the 7th schedule, alcohol is in the state list, That is why state governments consider this as a major source of their revenue, especially ever since GST has come into the picture. State governments keep on saying we don't have enough money, we don't have enough money. The only source of revenue they are left with is oil and alcohol. That is why alcohol ban is not happening anytime soon. This was our second article for the day. Let me take up a few comments and then we'll go ahead. When I used to be in school, there were some children, and not connected to anyone. When I used to be in school, there were some children, when the teacher used to say that this is your homework, those children would do the homework right there in that period and get their copies checked. We hated those children. Did you also have those children in your school? That the teacher used to give homework and they used to complete that on that very day, that very period. Please check my copy right now. I never liked those. Anyway, not connected to any one of you, don't worry. Yes, what are your questions? I know many of you were those children, don't worry, you don't have to tell me, I can see. How possible some state governments ban liquor? So some state governments have banned liquor. It is a law that is within their power. Gujarat has banned it since 1949. Bihar has banned it. Now, Bihar, for example, when they banned it, it was more of a political decision. So when Nitish Kumar was a CM, he banned it. It was mostly to get votes from women, because what happened was, because of this liquor, many families were being broken, there was domestic violence. So when Nitish Kumar, for example, in Bihar decided to ban liquor, it is said that a lot of women voters then shifted to him. So that was his reason, but there are different reasons how liquor and why liquor is banned. Manoj is saying, but the government can decrease ethanol content. Again, remember, this liquor that we are talking about, the entire concept of this liquor, hooch, it is illegal. So when you are doing something illegally, hiding from the government, how will the government control it? There is a law by FSSAI, how much ethanol can you put, how much methanol can you put, but these liquors, the spurious liquors that we are talking about, are made illegally. That is why the government is not being able to control it. I think we have already discussed, Chandrasekhar, why India has not banned alcohol. Dipesh is saying, can you explain about Article 47 and banning of alcohol consumption? So Dipesh, Article 47 is a part of our directive principles of the state policy. Directive principles of the state policy means they are suggestions given by the constitution makers to the future governments that you should implement this to have a perfectly welfare society. It is not mandatory on the government. Some governments accept it, some governments don't accept it. So some have accepted it, they have banned liquor, and many have not. There's a student, Yodha, who is saying in Telangana women also have alcohol. Women have alcohol all across the country. I never suggested women don't have alcohol or women can't have alcohol. Anyone can have alcohol, whatever you want to have, you can have. I'm giving an example in Bihar. Why did the chief minister ban it? Because mostly the consumers of alcohol were male and there was domestic violence, so female voters shifted there. But again, women have alcohol or can have alcohol anywhere. There is no distinguishing between genders when it comes to consuming alcohol. None of the two genders should have it, but both the genders can have it. As simple as that. So don't worry, Telangana, Delhi, Bihar, Kerala, Karnataka, all are the same in terms of consumption of alcohol. Let's go ahead then. The next article that we have here is filled with a lot of data from economics. The simple theme of this article is that our trade is declining. Our trade is declining in the sense that if you look at the numbers in the past few months, import and export, both of these have slumped. Government exports in April were about $34.6 billion. This is the lowest in the last 6 months. Since October 2022, this is the lowest amount of export that we had. Do you have to remember these numbers? Absolutely no. Don't remember these numbers. Why? Because every single month the new data will come in. UPSC after 1 year will not ask you what was the export of April 2023. Tell me that. So you don't have to remember the numbers. Remember the trend. The trend is that the exports are decreasing. Not just this, the imports are also decreasing. So on one hand, exports are decreasing, means the amount of things that we export are decreasing. Why? Because there is a dip in the global demand. There is inflation all around the world. After COVID-19 pandemic, we have the Ukraine-Russia war. So both these matters have resulted in a very high inflation. Oil prices had increased very much in the past due to many of the Western countries, including the US, printing a lot of money. There was high inflation, as a result of which people are not being able to afford a lot of things. That is why around the world, the global demand has dropped, not just from India, but many other countries. There is one more reason. See, China was going through a lockdown period when they were facing another COVID wave. Remember, we read about how Shanghai was closed down, how people were protesting in China. Now what has happened is, in China, situation has normalized. So when situation normalizes in China, as a result of this, we have Chinese companies also coming back on track. China also has increased its export. So that also has a big role to play. So India's exports are reduced, number one, because of the global demand not being very high, and secondly, because of China coming back on its feet. The other aspect, why is our import also decreasing? Decrease in import also has to do with the same, that in India also, the demand is not very high, economy is not growing at breakneck speed, it's not that economy is expanding very high. So in India also, the impact of inflation is being felt. Now tell me this, reducing or declining import, is it good or bad? What do you think? When our import is declining, do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? What would your suggestion be? Should India be happy our imports are declining? See, there are two ways to look at it. One way you can say it is good. Why? Imports declining means that your trade deficit is declining, you are not spending a lot of foreign exchange, so that is good on that behalf, right? So good on the aspect that you are not buying a lot of things, but it would be good if imports were substituted with the things made in India. See, there is something called import and then there's something called consumption. Consumption is how much people are spending anyway. So if people are still spending the same money, but we are not importing stuff, we are making it in India and people are buying it, then that is good. Are you understanding? If the consumption is the same, people are spending the same money or spending more money, but import is decreasing, that is good. Because then it means that you're not importing that stuff, you are making that in India itself. However, in this case, what is happening is import and consumption both are reducing. So when consumption also comes down with import, that means reduction in import is not because we are making something in India. It's just because of a lower consumption, lower demand. This is a problem. People not having enough money in their hands. When do people not spend money? Either they don't have money, so they don't spend money, or they have money but they want to save money. Why? Because people are not sure about the future. When you are not sure if your job will remain secure, when you're not sure if you will be able to earn 6 months after today, you will not spend money, right? You will preserve money, conserve money. That is when consumption comes down. High consuming society, high consuming market is an indication that people are optimistic about the future. That I am optimistic, I'm spending money today because tomorrow again I'll earn money. This is not happening right now. So imports are reducing, which is not that good a sign. Why? Because again, imports are reducing and they are not being substituted by something made in India. This is data that I've taken from the government's PIB report. As you can see, year on year, how much has it increased or decreased? I'll tell you one more thing. Please understand this. When the government releases numbers, let's assume the government says that in April 2023, our imports have reduced, okay? Please understand this. When the government releases these numbers, in 90% of the times when they are saying that it has reduced, they are not comparing with the previous month. They are not comparing this with previous month. They are comparing with the same month last year. So 2023 April will be compared not with March 2023. It will be compared with April 2022. That will be compared with April 2021. That is how you say it has increased or decreased. So when you say increase or decrease is being seen in import and export, it is not with comparison to last month. It is about with comparison to the same month previous year. Because see, the pattern changes, right? In March, every year people would consume different types of things. In April, people consume different type of things. So you always compare with the same month last year. And this is where you see decline in the trade. This is where you see Both in overall trade and in merchandise, it has declined. Exports have also declined here, and this has also declined, that is the import part. It is all in US billion dollar. Again, you don't have to remember the numbers, exact data will not be asked. This is just to tell you how exactly does it work. Now, there is one more aspect that you can think about, or you can compare this with. 2022 numbers were high for one more reason, because 2022 beginning was a time that world was, or India especially, was coming out of COVID impact. So demand was increasing at the same time. So in 2022, the increase in numbers, import, export, both of them were also because people were just coming out of the lockdown. So compared to that, you can say now we are normalizing the demand. So there are different ways in which you can interpret the data. If you are the government, for example, if you look at the government side of the story, government compares this with 2021 because that was the low base. Opposition will compare it with the last year. So it depends which side of the story you are on, and you will compare it like that. This also is a graph that shows you how India's trade has not gone up considerably as it should have. If our goal of a 5 trillion economy has to be reached, we have to make sure that our import and export, both of them, work up and increase at a significant pace. These were the articles from the mains examination point of view. Let me quickly take up a few questions before we move on to the couple of questions from the prelims exam point of view. Sharma is saying in India, lockdown time period is about 75 or more days, despite government not focusing on MSME sector and welfare. Why? No, I won't agree that government is not focusing on welfareism and MSME. They provided free food grains for such a long time, that is welfare. MSME sector got a lot of incentives on the side of the government. It got tax breaks also. I won't say that government is not focusing on welfare MSME. They have. If you have data that shows otherwise, then you have to present that data. Kumkum is saying, but India is the third largest exporter to Netherlands. Kumkum, but I don't understand why is this significant. We are not discussing that India's exports have become zero. We are still exporting to many countries. It has just come down. So yes, we will always be largest exporter to some countries, or second largest, third largest to some countries. Then there's a question, how to learn important data, import and export in respect of mains. So in respect of mains, rather than focusing on month-on-month data, please focus on year-on-year data. So for the mains examination, if you're remembering the data, don't focus on month-on-month, focus on year-on-year. So focus on overall, let's say this financial year import-export compared with the last year. Just 2-3 years would be good enough. So for mains examination point of view, don't focus on month-on-month. Then I have a question. Anuj, it is India. Manoj Babu is saying, how many years take to become self-reliant? There is no scientific experiment that will tell you in how many years we'll become self-reliant. It's a journey that will happen gradually. Hopefully, we will be alive to say that day. Ankit, we already discussed the reason for India's decline in import. In local demand is also decreasing. People are not very optimistic. The economy has not grown at such a fast pace as it should, and that is why people are not consuming more. So we don't have a lot more import. Sufyan, yes. Sufyan is saying tipping trade may cause inflation. I don't think so. Inflation is increase in prices of goods generally. I don't think reducing trade will result in that. Okay, let's go ahead and start our discussion about the couple of prelims-based topics. First prelims-based topic, the Supreme Court Collegium has recommended certain judges in the Supreme Court of India. You don't have to remember the name of the judges, that is absolutely fine. You just have to remember a bit of details about this. I am sure in Indian polity, all of you have read about the 3 judges cases. The 3 judges cases that decided about the Collegium system in India, how the Collegium system will be formed, how the Collegium, that is the Chief Justice of India, and 4 senior most judges, they will recommend a name to the President of India and it will be binding. However, in the past few months, this has been a matter of big contention. The Government of India wants to change this. The Government of India wants that they should also have a role to play in appointment of judges in the Supreme Court and High Court. and the Supreme Court on the other hand is against it. They do not want any interference from the side of the government. What has happened is many times the Collegium recommends a name to the government, but the government sends it back many times. I'll tell you one more thing. See, governments always keep the last option with them. Governments will never ever give all the powers to anybody else. I'll give you two examples, okay? There are two examples I want to give you. First example, the Supreme Court judge's appointment. Now you can say in the Supreme Court judge's appointment, government has no role to play. The Supreme Court Collegium recommends the judge, but the government has a role to play. What? The role is that the government decides the date of appointment. So Collegium will send the name, but on which day the oath-taking ceremony will take place, on which day will the official appointment take place, government decides that. Government keeps on saying, oh, we are doing a background check. We have asked the CBI to do a background check of the judge. We hope he doesn't have any connection with Pakistan or anyone else. So we are delaying it. And they delay it for many months and months and months. Why? Because when you delay the appointment of a judge in the Supreme Court, the chances of that judge becoming the Chief Justice of India are much lower, because your appointment date matters a lot. So this is number one. Second, I'll give you one more very interesting example. You all would have read about the Delimitation Commission, right? Delimitation Commission decides on redrawing of the boundaries. They decide the number of seats given to the states. This is the job of the Delimitation Commission. Now, Delimitation Commission, as you know, is such an important commission that their recommendation is binding on the government. Whatever they have recommended, the government cannot change it. But even then, the government has powers. You know what powers? Government of India advises the president. The president decides on which day the recommendations will be implemented. So let's assume the Delimitation Commission suggests that Uttar Pradesh should have 100 seats in Lok Sabha instead of 80. The president will say, okay, but we will implement this in 2050, because the president decides the date of implementation. So government cannot change the order of the Delimitation Commission, but they can certainly advise the president on what day do we have to implement that. So there are multiple examples where you will see the government may not seem to have power in their hand, but in the end they will control all the cards. The same happens in the Collegium as well, where the government delays it time and time again when they don't like the judge name. They also send back the name of the judge multiple times. Now in this case, some judges have been recommended. For example, senior advocate Mr. K.V. Vishwanathan has been recommended. Now this is very rare. Remember this, for appointment in the Supreme Court, you have to fulfill one of the three qualifications. Either you have to be a High Court judge 5 years, either you have to be a High Court advocate 10 years, or you have to be a distinguished jurist, right? So far in the history of India, no distinguished jurist has become a Supreme Court judge. So usually it is about the first two. Either you have to be a High Court judge for 5 years, or you have to be a High Court advocate for 10 years. Now, usually in 90% of the cases, it is a High Court judge that becomes a Supreme Court judge. It is very, very rare. It is very, very rare that a High Court advocate, from an advocate you straight away become a Supreme Court judge. It is very, very rare. Usually from a judge you first become High Court judge, then you become Supreme Court judge. But very rarely you do see some advocates straight away becoming Supreme Court judges. This has what happened with Mr. K.V. Vishwanathan. Also, some other names have been recommended. Andhra Pradesh Chief Justice Prashant Kumar Mishra's name has also been recommended. I'll give you one more homework for today. Apart from the name of Mr. X, there is one more homework I'd like you to find out. You have to find out the name of the first female who was appointed as a Supreme Court judge straight from being an advocate. Let me repeat. Tell me or search for the first female who used to be an advocate and straight away from advocate she became Supreme Court judge, not High Court judge, straight away Supreme Court judge. Which is the first one? You have to tell me that. That is again your homework. Tell me in the comment section after the video ends. So these two people have been recommended. If everything goes to plan, Mr. K.V. Vishwanathan would also become the Chief Justice of India as part of seniority in August 2030. So these are very significant appointments that the Supreme Court has done. Also, please remember one thing here. See, when the Collegium is recommending a certain name, as a Supreme Court judge, they will not see who is the senior most in high courts. Please understand this. Across the country, there are many high courts, right? In the high courts, there will be many judges who are over 5 years in the high court. So all of them are eligible to become Supreme Court judges, but all of them don't get to become Supreme Court judges. The Supreme Court doesn't see which is the senior most judge in all the high courts. No. The Supreme Court decides on various criteria. For example, in this case also, Justice Mishra, whose name has been recommended, is the 21st senior most judge in the high courts right now. So there are 20 judges above him that are more senior to him in high court. But his name has been recommended. Why? Because Supreme Court also usually sees which state is represented in the Supreme Court, which state is not represented in the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court thinks that a certain state is not represented, a certain state's high court has no Supreme Court judges, they usually give preference to that. This is what has happened in case of Justice Mishra as well. So Justice Mishra is from Chhattisgarh High Court. There was no Supreme Court judge from Chhattisgarh High Court, so that is why he has been given the nod, although he has not been the senior most. As you know, the Government of India, through a Constitution Amendment Act, tried to replace the Collegium system with the NJAC. NJAC was National Judicial Appointment Commission with 6 members, Chief Justice of India, 2 Supreme Court judges, Law Minister of the government, and 2 people from the civil society. This was introduced by the Government of India as a 6-member panel in place of the Collegium system, so that they will recommend judges, 3 people from judiciary, 3 outside the judiciary. But as expected, the Supreme Court struck it down. Supreme Court said that no, this is against the doctrine of separation of powers. We cannot have the government being a part of the appointment process. So this history of 3 judges cases, the NJAC, all these are extremely important for you, for the prelims and for the mains examination as well. Both of these are extremely important. And also equally important is for you to listen to me rather than Googling your homework right now. Because if you're not listening to me, you are just losing out on important time. Next important article, the last one that we have here, is that India is one step closer to having its own vaccine for dengue. So what has happened is that the Serum Institute of India and Panacea Biotech, these 2 companies, have applied to ICMR that they want to do 3rd phase trials of a dengue vaccine. Right now, we do not have a perfect cure for dengue. That is why having a dengue vaccine is extremely important. Also, the reason being India has most of the dengue cases in the world. Dengue anyway impacts those places which don't have enough sanitation, cleanliness is not up to the mark. There are a lot of mosquitoes. This is why developing countries such as India specifically are in danger of dengue. Now, as you can see, WHO has also identified dengue as one of the top 10 global health threats. So dengue as a problem exists in large numbers in India, in Africa, in most of the developing world. As you know, dengue is caused by a mosquito called Aedes aegypti. This is the mosquito that actually causes dengue. Now, one person who has already caught dengue, if another mosquito then bites that person, they can transmit this to the other people as well. So then one single person having dengue can actually become the carrier of that dengue, because then other mosquitoes can get the dengue from that person. There are other things about dengue disease that you must know. WHO says 5 crore dengue infections occur annually. 5 crore. And most of these are in India. Dengue impacts mostly the developing society, where there is no proper sanitation, where water supply is inadequate, the solid waste infrastructure is not up to the mark. Also, mosquitoes usually occur in a very specific area. For example, and do remember this, the ideal condition for this mosquito species is 35 degree north and 35 degree south, in between this, at an elevation of 1000 meters. So you will see countries which are not in this zone of 35 degree north, 35 degree south. In those countries, we don't really have a lot of dengue disease because mosquito usually does not exist here. Also do remember this mosquito usually bites during the early morning and in the evening. That is why people are much more in danger, because in night you usually use your mosquito repellents, but in the daytime when you are not really taking care of yourself, this is when the dengue usually attacks. This brings us to the end of today's discussion. Here are a couple of practice questions for all of you based on the topics that we have discussed. As you know, there are some questions waiting for you in a Telegram group as well. Go over to a Telegram group and tell us by attending the quiz how many of these topics did you actually understand. I gave you 2 homeworks for the day. You have to tell me both of these answers in the comment section. One, the name of Mr. X, because of whom alcohol was not banned by the Constituent Assembly. And second, the first female who got to become the Supreme Court judge straight from being an advocate and not a High Court judge. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day ahead. I'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.